Welcome to this Poppikit holiday cookie decorating video. This video is designed to accompany a downloadable PDF, which will give you much more detailed instructions as to how to decorate your cookies. So inside your kits, you've got a bunch of fun things to help you decorate, and the tools that you need are listed right here. Let's go ahead and get started by making our royal frosting. First, you're going to add all but half a cup of your royal frosting mix to your bowl, and you're going to add 3 to 4 tablespoons of water to the rest of the royal frosting straight into a bowl. And we're going to mix this together to make what is called ribbon consistency. So while you're doing this, you're just mixing it, you're getting rid of any lumps, and we're looking for a thick, drizzling consistency. If you need to add liquid, just add really small amounts, about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon at a time, because we don't want to add too much liquid. You're then going to test the ribbons by running the frosting back and forth over the remaining frosting in the bowl and waiting for those drizzles to dissipate in 5 to 10 seconds. Once you've made your royal frosting, we're going to hydrate our food colors. Use your color chart on the PDF to decide what colors you're going to make and measure those powders in separate bowls. I'm making green here, so I have blue and yellow, and I'm adding 1/3 of a cup of prepared frosting, royal frosting, to the bowl, which I'm going to use to hydrate those colors. And this blue and yellow is going to turn into a beautiful green color. So I'm just mixing the frosting into the glaze, and you can use up to a half a cup of frosting. Depending on how much frosting you use, you'll have more bold colors or lighter colors. So I'm using the underside of my spoon up against the sides and the bottom of the bowl to make sure there are no lumps, which will clog the piping bag. And then when I start to add liquid to return it to drizzling ribbon consistency, I'm just adding drops, probably no more than half a teaspoon total. Again, it's easy to add too much liquid, so do it in small drops. That way you won't add too much. If you do add too much, you can always use that emergency frosting mix that we set aside at the beginning to thicken it up slightly. Check your ribbons, make sure they're disappearing in 5 to 10 seconds, and then you're going to repeat this to make your other colors. We will now dip a couple cookies to check that consistency is right. So take one of your cookies out, check that it's got that nice smooth side on top, and we're gonna get the frosting to go all the way to the outer edges of the cookie, but not down the sides of the cookie. That's the goal. So hold your cookie between your thumb and 3 fingers, press it into freshly stirred frosting, and press gently around the outside of the cookie. We're then going to try and gently release the cookie, and you're gonna wanna give it a little bit of a twist. There will be some pull from the frosting. And as you release, you're going to shake the cookie, hold it upside down. Don't be tempted to flip it over. We want to make sure that that excess frosting gets off the cookie. You can also use a toothpick to help you. When you've done that, you can flip the cookie over, remove your bowl. You're going to want to put it on your work surface. And then we're going to use one of the toothpicks in the kit to knock out any of the air pockets, fill in any spaces or gaps that you might have, clean up the sides if you need to, and give a nice little gentle tap to sort of help even out the frosting and help it go smooth. Next, we're going to fill our piping bags. So working one at a time, you're going to need a tool glass. You're going to take your piping tip, and you're going to put the pointed end of the piping bag into the glass and open up the bag over the rim of the glass. Make sure that there's a nice space inside the glass, and we're going to fill this bag with 1 tablespoon of frosting. So you can see how the plastic is folded over the rim, a little bit like a riding boot, and that way if any mess gets on this outside, it'll actually be on the inside of the bag. So about 1 tablespoon of the frosting is going to go in here. We want to make sure that we leave enough frosting in the bowl so that we can dip more cookies. We just need a really small amount so that we can decorate inside the piping bags. So once you put the frosting in, you can remove the glass, open the piping bag back up. Any frosting that is up the sides of the bag, you just want to gently coax towards that pointed end. Don't worry if you've got a little bit of an air pocket. You can sort of massage the bag to get rid of any air. Give it a nice tight twist at the top and replace that twist with a twist tie. It's really important that the bag always feels full at that pointed end. It will give you a lot more control when you're piping. Holding a piping bag. So you're going to hold your piping bag in your dominant hand. You can see the bulk of the bag is in your palm, and I'm using my thumb to create a seal where my twist tie is. It's going to stop the frosting coming out that open end. We want to make sure it always feels nice and full in the front, and then you're going to wrap your 4 fingers around the bag, and this is where the pressure is going to come from when we pipe. It's going to be a squeeze and then release as you stop piping. Cutting off the tip of the piping bags. It's really important when you do this that you only cut a small corner off, about 1/8 of an inch. You can always cut more off, but once you've cut it, you can't cut less off. We want enough just so you can pipe a nice thin line, and make sure that you remove that excess plastic and make sure that you get a nice clean cut so there's no hanging bits of plastic off the side of your bag. It'll make sure that you get a nice even line. And you can do this with all of the piping bags that you've filled. I've done one that's white, green, and red. And now it's time to get decorating. We're going to start with a simple one where we're going to get a real feel for how the frosting comes out of the piping bag with a free-form zigzag. So start with a cookie that has just been dipped, or maybe you dipped it a few minutes ago. Just get your piping bag ready, pinch the end, make sure that the frosting hasn't crusted over. Check that the frosting is going to come out nice and easily. And then making sure that your arms are nice and firm on the surface, I'm just dragging the frosting out of the bag. And imagine like you're laying ropes. So I'm not touching the cookie with my piping bag. I'm just running it back and forth, applying even pressure the whole way. If you stop squeezing halfway, you're going to get broken lines. So even pressure. I'm going to apply some sprinkles to this cookie. So I'm going to turn it because I like to do my sprinkles in a little bit more of a controlled way. But feel free to put your sprinkles all over the cookie if that's what you like. Next up, we're going to do a Christmas tree cookie. So this is a bit of a free-form Christmas tree. My white cookie has been sitting for a little while, which means that when I apply the green frosting, it's going to have more of a 3D effect because it's going to sit on top of the white frosting. I'm just running a zigzag pattern back and forth, getting gradually wider, and I'm finishing with a little bit of a stem. I'm going to add some sprinkles for ornaments. And then finally, to make it a little bit more interesting, I'm just going to add some red dots around the outside of the cookie. And when I do this, I like to sort of mark out my north, south, east, west points, and it makes sure that you have nice, even spacing between the dots. Rotate the cookie using 2 fingers, and then carry on adding your dots. Oops, I just broke my own rule there and added 1 less dot. Hopefully no one will notice. There it is, freeform Christmas tree. Okay, now we're going to do a holiday wreath cookie. It's really important when doing this cookie that you have a freshly dipped cookie so that you can create the design on top of it. So I'm going to start again by doing dots on the cookie, and I'm going to mark out my north, south, east, west points to make sure that my dots are evenly spaced. They don't have to be a particular size, but I would go for smaller rather than bigger just because the cookie can only take so much frosting. So I'm marking out my points, making sure they're evenly spaced, and obviously this doesn't look like much, but this is where the magic happens. Grab that toothpick, and you're going to drag the toothpick all the way through the center of each of those dots to connect them into an awesome looking wreath. So cool, right? All right, this wreath looks a little bit plain, so I am going to go ahead and add some red berries. I'm going to pinch the end of my red to make sure it hasn't crusted over, and then I'm just going to add simple dots going around the side of the cookie. And it's starting to look a little bit more festive. You can see through the dots, they also look a little bit like hearts, so now you're prepared for Valentine's Day too. So if you make a little bit of a mess like I just did there where I didn't touch down, you can just use a toothpick to help clean it up. And now I'm going to add a sprinkle border to this cookie because I think it adds a lot of fun. You're going to want to make sure that the cookie frosting is still tacky enough that the sprinkles will stick when you do this. Okay, the candy cane swirl. So we're going to build on the toothpick techniques. This one's super fun. Start with a freshly flooded cookie. That's really important that you've just dipped your cookie. And we're going to apply lines. You can do 1 color, 2 colors, even 3 colors will work. And I'm just making sure that I have nice lines, squeezing the lines, laying those ropes as I go across the cookie, trying to make sure you get it evenly squeezed so you don't get broken lines like I just did. They don't need to be particularly straight or even. But you just want to make sure that you get the lines all the way to the outer edges. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add green lines. Okay, take your toothpick and put it right into the center of the cookie. We're then going to spiral it out, and this is why it's important that that bottom layer of frosting is still wet when you apply the designs. We're spiraling it all the way out until you get to the outer edges, and I just think it looks like one of those peppermint candies that you get over the holidays wrapped in plastic. I love it. Also kind of like an ornament too. So cute. Okay, the ugly holiday sweater, or maybe it's not ugly, it's just a holiday sweater. Again, we're working with a freshly dipped cookie, and we're gonna add lines across the cookie. Now feel free to get creative with your patterns. Maybe you wanna do like I'm doing, a double white line, fill in with green, mix up your colors. Just make sure that you get your lines the whole way across by making sure that you have a full piping bag. I'm gonna go add my green now. Again, this works with one color or two colors. Then we're gonna take our toothpick, and this time we're gonna run it straight through those frosting layers. It's really important that you're running it just through the lines and you're not scraping the bottom of the cookie. And you can also clean off your toothpick in between to make sure that you don't make a mess. Now you can leave it like that if you think that looks cool. I think it looks pretty cool like that, but I'm gonna go back the other way and drag the toothpick in the opposite direction in between those lines. And this is where it really starts to look like an Argyle sweater. This one makes me so happy. It's so cool, right? Okay, the poinsettia cookie. This one may be my favorite. Again, you're gonna need a freshly dipped cookie, and we're gonna paint a bullseye in this cookie, or rather, frost a bullseye in this cookie, starting with a big dot in the center. I'm then gonna draw a circle around the outside, and I'm gonna do this double thickness to make sure that we get a really good effect. And I'm gonna do one more. I promise you, we are not making the Target logo here. We're gonna do something a little cooler than that. This is, however, how you would start to make a spider web. So save that little factoid for Halloween. Okay, toothpick again, starts in the center of that dot, and you're gonna pull it all the way out through those outer rings as far as you can go so that you can get a nice little point. And you can see that I'm basically creating sort of pie slices here. Nice even spaced triangles, always starting in the center. And you can probably tell it's starting to look like either a spider web or some kind of superhero logo. So let's turn it into a flower. So now I'm starting on the outside, and in between each of those pie slices we created, I'm dragging the toothpick back into the center. And I'm not cleaning it in between because I kind of like how the red gives you a little bit of a splash on the outside in between each of those pie slices. How cool is that? The snowflake. Okay, so this is a chance to practice your fine piping techniques. I would recommend that you start with a cookie that has sat so the frosting layer is a little bit firmer. I'm marking out my points. I've marked the center, and now I'm gonna mark a wide X in my cookie. And this is another way to make sure that you have nice, evenly spaced dots on the cookie. But obviously, snowflakes all look different. So this is one where you can really practice creativity, really go off piste and do your own thing. I'm now connecting those dots. So I have my one straight up and down through the center, and again, my wide X. And this is where the magic happens. I'm gonna add some little sort of V's, which are sort of like the frost bites on the snowflake. And I'm gonna add these to all of my lines. And then I'm gonna fill in with a few dots. But again, you can add extra lines, extra V's. They can be as embellished or as simple as you like. These are your cookies. Again, just make sure that you're touching down the piping bag on each dot to stop the flow of frosting. Our final cookie is our snowman cookie. Again, this one can go either on a cookie that has just been frosted and the snowman will sort of go nice and flat and smooth, or you can go on a cookie where you frosted it and it sat and dried and you'll get more of a 3D effect. So I'm just making a two-bodied snowman, and I'm drawing in white, I'm filling in using the piping bag as well as using the toothpick to make sure that there's no green showing. And then this is like a little bit of a snow globe. So I'm gonna add a few snowflakes just all around the cookie. Again, touching down on each dot to make sure we stop the flow of frosting. And he's pretty basic and he's kind of cute, but I think he needs a little bit of a scarf and a few buttons to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to use my red for that, and I'm going to start by making the scarf. I'm just going to make sure that my piping bag is nice and full, and I'm going to pipe a line and a little V for my scarf, and then 3 little dots for buttons. That brings us to the end of this class. We hope you've had a great time, and please share with us your experience by reaching out to us on social or email.